we compare ourselves to a real old animal, an old base cow, well then all our figures will look positive. Whereas if you bring a base as close as you can to the current population of animals, well then it gives more true reflection of how those are performing on farm. And again, especially with banding now, we don't necessarily want to be driving more higher volume. What we need is more percentages and higher kilos within that volume.
Last week saw the release of the ICBF's September evaluations. This is the first evaluation run since May of this year, missing out the July evaluation to allow work to take place to include updates in this September run. These changes include changing of the base cow used in the evaluation, updating of the economic values used in the EBI, and inclusion of more information and a better method of evaluation for health and management traits. Today I'm joined by Kevin Downing of ICBF to discuss the changes that have come in and what they will mean for farmers. But I started by asking Kevin to explain why the base change happens every few years.
I suppose, first of all, just to say that, look, the EBI, I suppose, has consistently proven itself to be the best predictor of on-farm profitability. And I suppose to make sure that it's as relevant today as it was in the past, we regularly make changes. And one of those which we implement around every 10 years is a base change. And that's just to make sure that we're comparing the animals of today with a more relevant animal. And I suppose, you know, if we're comparing ourselves to a real old animal, an old base cow, well then all our figures will look positive. Whereas if you bring a base up to as close as you can to the current population of animals, well then it gives more true reflection of how those are performing on farm. So that's the kind of rationale behind it. And as you said, the base change, that's one of the changes, but like the other big one is the changes to the economic values.
Yeah, so I suppose, as I was saying to you there beforehand, like I think it's important to clarify for people here that this change in the economic values isn't a short-term response to increased milk prices and increased beef prices and calf prices in 2025. This is a long-term outlook scenario which would feed off of information from a lot of economic sources and so forth. So there's solid rationale for introducing it, and it's not a kind of a knee-jerk reaction really to kind of changes in prices this year.
No, absolutely not. And, we kind of look at the economics in conjunction with Teagasc every couple of years just to see are they fit for purpose. And, we've made changes over the years. And I think the last change actually to the economics was back in 2017. So it's been a good few years since we've updated those figures. So they were due to be updated, but we don't make any knee-jerk reactions, as you said. So, for example, 2 years ago when milk price was at an all-time high, that wouldn't have been a good time to be setting a real high milk price. And similarly, when we were paying up to €1,000 a ton for fertilizer, that certainly wouldn't have been a figure that you'd be using in the cost side of it. So it's very much looking at projecting where will the milk price, where will the feed price, where will the fertilizer price be in 2030 and beyond.
Yeah, so it's something that you do routinely every couple of years anyway. Like you look to see are the costs reflective, and if there was a requirement to make an adjustment, you would. But yeah, like as you said, in response to 2022, you didn't react to that because the feeling would be that it would settle back out again. But obviously, like the climate has changed, definitely from a milk price point of view, the base price is expected to be higher, and you've changed that. And obviously, feed and fertilizer have gone to kind of higher levels than they have been in the past, and labour is obviously the other one, and energy costs they're just some of the costs that are considered in what Lawrence has done there.
I suppose the big one there is the change in the milk price. So that's gone from 31 cent a litre, excluding VAT, to 38 cent a litre. So, that's a big percentage increase in milk price. And that's 40 cent a litre, including VAT. So that's as good a prediction as we have. And I suppose when you look at the feed and fertilizer, they've gone from 250 a ton for feed up to 370 a ton, and similarly fertilizer now is up at 550 a ton. So they're certainly more reflective of prices today and where we see them over the next couple of years. And as you said, labor was the other one. The labor costs they go up um, nearly on an annual basis, but we've it set there at €17 an hour in the evaluations. And you said energy costs, yeah, that's always one that has, that remains relatively stable. But yeah, it has gone up dramatically there in the last 2 or 3 years. So it's gone from, so in the economic evaluations, we've gone from 0.15 up to 0.25 cent per kilowatt hour.
Okay, so Kevin, I suppose there's one other significant change, and it's probably the one that will maybe stand out to people most, maybe because the numbers will possibly show a bit more clearly than just because of the base changes. Everything is all relative, really. But the movement of the heifer rearing costs from the beef side into the maintenance side. And again, I suppose just to clarify it for the listeners, why did you choose to make that decision?
Yeah, the first thing, yeah, and you rightly said the base change that moving of the animal from 2015 or 2005 up to 2015, that results in every animal seeing a scaling back in their EBI of €97. But as you rightly point out, there is absolutely no re-ranking in the animals. Every animal is affected equally. Okay. And moving then to the reason why we moved to maintenance, that um, has been in the beef sub-index for since we introduced it. And I suppose it was felt that, there's a rearing cost to the heifer, but there's also a maintenance cost for those 2 years. And it biologically, I suppose, it fits more in with the maintenance in that there's a heifer rearing and growing, but a maintenance cost as well for the 2 years prior to when she calves down. Whereas in the beef side, that's really only captured when a cow is finished, when a cull cow is finished. So it just makes more biological sense to have it in there. But you're right, it's going to have an impact on the maintenance figures. And that's one thing that farmers will see the old maintenance value that they would have been used to. They'd have to get used to a new figure now when choosing bulls. But we've created a ready reckoner to allow farmers to put in what their old base figure was, and it will tell you what the new base animal or the new base figure they need to be looking at to maintain that live weight within the herd. So that will be a useful tool for farmers. But after a couple of months, you'll forget about what the old value is, and the new value will be just the currency.
Yeah, so I suppose it's just that there's a small tweak to be made where it used to reflect directly the size of the cow. You have to factor in that there's, I think, is it 43% of that figure is associated with the heifer rearing cost now. So there's a formula there, but as you said, you have already acted on it, and that you have that ready reckoner available on the website already to
Yeah.
deal with that. So it's just a case of getting used to the new figure, really.
Yeah, so I suppose historically it was 100% of the maintenance was just down to maintaining the cow size, whereas now that's with the heifer growing part in there, the cow piece is at around 63%, and the heifer rearing and maintenance piece is at 37% of the overall figure. Um, and again, there is a higher cost in growing a heifer as well. It would be nearly double that of maintaining a cow.
Was actually on the maintenance piece as well, it's probably worth pointing out that even though the numbers will have switched between the maintenance and the beef, the actual overall EBI won't be dramatically impacted by that change, really, will it?
No, that's it. And like while maintenance figures may go up or down for a particular animal, similarly the same will happen on the beef side. So one nearly cancels out the other, not exactly canceling it out, but if you have a big increase in your maintenance, you're going to see probably a big decrease on your beef, and vice versa. So you know in terms of adding the two together, there'll be very little difference in the overall ranking of where you were prior to these changes.
Very good. So obviously September is a good time to bring these things in because it gives people a chance to get used to them. But so you're ready to roll there now. You've your background work done over the last couple of days, and you're in a position that you'll be able to
Yeah.
print reports for people now. So what will people expect to see if they decided to log on today now and look at their new EBI report? What will they notice?
Okay, so farmers can log in now and run their EBI report. So we've ran the whole national population to create the national averages and that. So farmers now, when they run their report, they will see they'll get a bit of a shock first of all, because the figure they would have seen previously will typically be 80 to 90 euro less than what it was. So that's really down to the base change and a little bit on the economics. So, but if they look at the scorecard, they'll see, the star rating of where they lie, and that typically won't have changed at all, bar maybe, people who are on the edge of 1 star rating might slip down, or some might increase. But in general, there'll be very little change to the actual ranking of where your herd was prior to these changes.
Okay, and so in terms of communication with with farmers and so forth, you have a plan in place there as well for that.
So at the moment we're just printing a flyer that's going to go out to all the dairy farmers with a cover letter, and we'll include their herd EBI scorecard as well. So, they don't have to log in; they're going to get it in the post in the coming days anyway. And hopefully, the flyer will just run through the three main areas that we've updated: the base population, the economic values, which were updated by Teagasc, and also then we've made a change to the health and management evaluation. So farmers may notice a change there in the health and management. That's the only other area that we haven't discussed that has been updated.
Yeah, and that's only a change in methodology, really, Kevin. A couple of adjustments within it, nothing major other than kind of a better process of running it, really, is it?
Yeah, there's probably a little bit more in that we've revamped obviously how we run it. We've also updated the economics in it, but there is also an increase in the amount of data going in there. So farmers who record temperament scores over the last number of years, that data wasn't being included because we had moved from a 5 point scale of how we recorded it to a 3 point scale. We couldn't just continue to put the data in without having a system to match the 5 star, we'll say, a system with the three. So that piece of work is done. And so there's a lot of extra temperament data flowing into the animals evaluations. So there will be a bit of re-ranking at that side, and also the locomotion scores that we do on animals. They're now included as predictor traits as well for the health.
I suppose just to encourage people that they can include that information or update their own information for their own herds on temperament as well, because you often hear people talking about individual bulls maybe producing heifers that can be crossed or whatever. So it's obviously very good to feed that information back into you to improve evaluations over time.
No, absolutely, and that's the one thing we would always encourage farmers to do towards the back end of the year, is to record the health and temperament scores. And so if you're not recording your mastitis and lameness events throughout the year, you do have an opportunity at the end just to identify the cows that have had a number of cases of lameness or mastitis. Select those, and similarly in the temperament, there'll be a few cows in every herd that are probably on the slightly temperamental side, and we need to get that information from farmers so as to then make sure that the future bulls will be less temperamental and have better health scores.
Very good. So, Kevin, I suppose overall a positive change. Well, look, it is a positive change. There's no overall about it, but just maybe a small bit of adjustment required from people. No, nothing to be afraid of. I suppose it's just as you said. The big shock will be probably that where we might have had a 230 or a 250 for an EBI, that's going to be closer to 150 now again. And the key thing to point out to people there is that that's because the base cow has come up rather than their herd going down. So the herd of cows that they have standing out in the paddock this morning is just the same as it was last week, only the value of their performance is relative to that new base cow has reduced compared to what they were compared to that older base cow, as you said, which is actually, when you think about it, is 20 years ago, which is a long time ago, and a long many kind of differences in terms of performance type cow in the way that they would have performed back then as well, like when you think of where we are now, like.
Absolutely. And I suppose it's fair to say that we've made great gains in that 10-year period. The last time we made a base change, it was a 10-year period. It was €71 is what we readjusted the base cow by. This change is €97. And in effect, that's the genetic gain that we as a country have made in the last 10 years. So that's nearly €10 per year. And if you look at the performance of the base cow, it has 46 kilos more milk solids than what the previous base 10 years prior had. So again, lots of improvements, much more milk coming from these animals at a more sustainable level. And also, like the other change, I suppose farmers will have to get used to, Stuart, is they will see more animals on the list with minus kilos for milk volume, but that's not necessarily a bad thing in that it's all about your overall kilos of output. So, on A plus B minus C payment system, it's actually, you're penalized for extra volume and rewarded for your kilos and your percentages. So that's where, I suppose we need to focus and refocus on the milk sub-index within the EBI and not be overly concerned with what the milk kilo of that cow is. If she's the highest milk sub-index, she's going to be the most profitable from a milk output point of view. So that's probably one thing that we like to emphasize here again, that if you're looking to pick bulls that are better on milk, focus on the milk sub-index. And obviously, as I said at the very start, EBI is still the best predictor of profitability on farm. And for every €1 increase in EBI, there's a €2 increase in extra profitability, and that has proven itself year in, year out. And I know that we've done some research there over the last while with the latest profit monitor data, and again, it's showing that it is what it says on the tin. So EBI is working on the ground.
So, Kevin, I suppose it was remiss of me. I forgot to ask you about the milk kgs piece, but it is a concern from our perspective. I suppose the people will perceive a negative figure to be a negative. But what is the new base cow in terms of their capacity for milk production like?
Yeah, so the new base, there's loads of milk in the new base cow. If you look at the actual figures, and they're up on the website, and they'll be in the flyer as well. The new base cow is coming in at over 6,280 kilos of milk. Now, that's for a 305-day performance figure. So, there's probably very few cows achieving the 305 days in milk, but that's what the milk recording figures are showing for those milk recorded cows in 17, 18, and 19. So lots of volume there. And that equates to, 490 kilos of milk solids. So certainly, and a minus, as you said, that's not a bad thing at all. And again, especially with banding now, we don't necessarily want to be driving more higher volume. What we need is more percentages and higher kilos within that volume.
Yeah, and I suppose the other thing, Kevin and Lawrence has spoken about it before, and we touched on it there a little while ago in terms of the energy cost as well, like that A plus B minus C, as you just mentioned there a while ago. Like that minus C portion, if energy costs stay high, there's a likelihood that there could be an adjustment maybe in that, which will penalise farmers for higher volume, lower solids, we'll say. So there's a kind of a bit of a balancing act in terms of the kilos of milk that you have and the total solids that you produce. You can produce a high level of solids, but it can be very watery. Or you can produce concentrated solids that are of low water. And you have some figures done there lately as well, which will be bringing to people's attention in the next number of weeks, I suppose, as well, showing that those lower volume cows are well able to punch in terms of an economic return versus the higher milk cows maybe. So the perception that you have to have high volume to get the financial return is completely turned on its head, and it's just important that people don't, as I said, get perturbed by the negative value for milk, probably because that base adjustment has taken 74 kilos off of every cow in every herd effectively. So a lot of people will possibly have gone from being slightly positive maybe to negative now, or people may have gone from a strong positive to a slightly lower positive, and it's so important that people don't get bothered by that. We need people to concentrate, as you said, on the kilos of fat and protein and the percentages within the sub-index rather than the actual volume piece of it, if they want to produce milk that's going to be high value, high return to them, and high profitability, as you said.
Absolutely. And again, milk kilo PTA is a really good predictor of milk litres, but it is not a good predictor of milk solids or milk value. So that's the key message. If you're looking at milk solids, milk value, it's the milk sub-index is the best indicator to go from.
Been a very good, concise, comprehensive update on the updates as such. So thanks for joining us today, and best of luck with the rollout, full rollout there, and hopefully everything will end well anyway with people, and that today will help to ease any people's concerns about the changes.
Great. Thanks very much, Stuart.
That's all for this week's episode of the Dairy Edge podcast, and my thanks to Kevin Downing for joining me on this week's show. Don't forget to rate, review and subscribe to the podcast. You can listen on Apple and Google Podcasts as well as Spotify, and for more information go to the Teagasc website at teagasc.ie. We also have a dedicated email address, dairyedge.podcast@teagasc.ie. I'm Stuart Childs, and join us next time for your Dairy Edge.